And Bert will now add some stones to the bowl for those joys and sorrows that lay unrepresented yet. I'll read our Menti responses before reading our words of prayer. Thinking a lot about a family member's surgery tomorrow and the failing kidneys of a 16-year-old cat. Prayers and or positive thoughts from my daughter who is in solitary confinement for the next 25 days. Prayers headed her way. And sharing the sorrow of the never-ending car problems in our family. Grateful that we have good transport. And now please continue with me into a time of meditation or prayer or contemplation, whatever is your own way of centering and listening in. And here are words for prayer this morning from Reverend Mary Eades called There is Room for You Here. She writes, if God is your strength and companion, and prayer the means of centering your thoughts, there is room for you here. If the teachings of the Buddha give you clarity and calm in the midst of human striving, there is room for you here. If Gaia's seasonal rhythms lead you best through the myriad steps of life's great dance, there is room for you here. If still mysterious capacity and power of the mind stirs your imagination and quickens your pulse, there is room for you here. Rest now beside that spring, wherever it is for you, and let your attention go to the small places inside or out in the great wide world, places or people in need of healing, or for which your heart is filled with thanksgiving. And in that spirit, let us be silent together for a short time. music director, not this good music director. Another one taught me that silence is sometimes the best applause after a piece like that. I took an elective my first semester in seminary. The title of the course was Cults and New Religious Movements. I worked full-time during the day at that time, and it was offered at night, and it was taught by a professor who I'd met prior to seminary, and so I signed up. And I also had a personal connection to the topic. When I was 5 or 6, an extended family member became involved in a self-improvement group that had recently been featured on a national cable television show for its cult-like behaviors. We had a family reunion coming up, and so the adults in my family, after most of them watching that program, came together to learn how to help this family member leave this group. It was a tense family reunion, to say the least. Even as a young kid, I remember that feeling in my body. We kids were shuffled from space to space with coloring supplies and toys, while one adult stayed with us and the rest talked and talked and talked long into the night, many nights in a row. After the family reunion, that family member did end up leaving that group. And in that seminary class, 15 years later, we studied that group that my family member had been involved with, among many other groups that could be considered cults. And we also learned a new phrase, to me, new religious movement, which is a phrase that mostly used by academics, as far as I can tell, to describe the broad spectrum of groups which are outside the mainstream of American Christianity, some of which display cult-like tendencies. New religious movements is seen by some as less pejorative than the term cult, and can be used to describe some groups which we're not quite sure whether this is cultic or not. In that seminary class, we sifted through lists of what groups had been labeled, cults and new religious movements. And I saw one group that I was pretty familiar with, Unitarian Universalism. My surprise turned into understanding. What makes all new religious movements distinctive is they fall outside the mainstream, which is the distinguishing feature of all new religious movements, according to George Chrysides in his book, Exploring New Religions. And Unitarian Universalism does fall outside that mainstream, and if we break down this phrase, new and religious movements, Unitarian Universalism does fall within this broad definition of that phrase. Again, according to that author, it's a doorstop of a book, otherwise I'd recommend it to you. New. While Unitarian and Universalism are not new traditions, the consolidation of those two denominations in 1961 led to what we have now, which is a multi-religious, humanist-rooted tradition that was, and to some degree still is, outside the mainstream of religious ideas in this country. We are still relatively new. And religious movement. We do operate functionally as an organized religion, though some would dispute both parts of that phrase, organized and religion. We do have a denominational structure, and we give people means of coping with key events and adversities and misfortunes of life. So what distinguishes a cult-like new religious movement from one that is not? Robert J. Lifton, one of the first academics to define a destructive cult, says there are 3 common features. One is a charismatic, absolute totalitarian leader who increasingly becomes an object of worship as the general principles that might have originally sustained the group lose their power. 2 is a process of coercive persuasion or thought reform. And the third characteristic is economic, sexual, and other exploitation of group members by the leader and the ruling peoples. Margaret Singer, a professor and the author of a seminal book, Cults in Our Midst, describes the common characteristic of cults this way. Cults range from the relatively benign to those that exercise extraordinary control over their members' lives and use thought-form processes to influence and control members. While the conduct of certain cults causes non-members to criticize them, the term cult itself isn't pejorative but simply descriptive. It denotes a group that forms around a person who claims to have a special mission or knowledge, which they will share with those who turn over most of their decision-making to that self-appointed leader, end quote. So Unitarian Universalism, as I understand it, falls within this broad umbrella of new religious movement. But as far as I experience it, we do not fulfill the characteristics of a cult by either of these scholarly definitions. What we do have in common with many cults and new religious movements is the cultural period of time we arose from. The consolidation of our faith in 1961 came at the beginning of 2 decades of expansion of the breadth of understanding around religion and spirituality in the 1960s and 70s in the country. In that time, the U.S. saw many religious, spiritual, secular, and self-improvement focused groups emerge in the midst of the cultural and social upheaval of those decades. And many of those groups challenged the mainstream Christian belief system at the time. And some of them, adopted or grew roots in destructive behavioral patterns which negatively impacted adherence. More recently, in the past 5 to 10 years, as far as I can tell, a new term has come up, high demand groups, which have been coined to name those groups that display cult-like cultural patterns but are not explicitly religious or spiritual. High demand groups can be religious, spiritual, self-improvement, political, or otherwise. And they are exactly what that term says. They ask for high commitment from their members, which includes investment of personal energy, adoption of specific ideology, and sometimes high financial investment. So some of you are here like we are in muddy waters. Cults and new religious movements and high demand groups, what does all this mean? Why do I care? Why should I care? When we think of cults, many of our minds go to Jonestown, the Branch Davidians in Waco, the Moonies, Heaven's Gate. But the modern understanding of cult is more broad. The additional understanding of high demand groups has led us to understand how political and secular, even corporate groups can use cult-like tactics to negatively influence people, and positively. But for instance, many far-wing political groups active in the past few years, many far right-wing political groups in the past few years have displayed cult-like characteristics to keep their people engaged. And also, some popular multi-level marketing businesses have cult-like tendencies. The divisiveness of our politics, economy, and religious life has created space for charismatic people in all areas to take control of people's minds and their lives. And knowing that religious, spiritual, secular, political, and corporate groups can display cult-like characteristics, we could probably now rattle off a list of groups that might fall into this broad category of cults or high demand. And I would venture to guess, based on my pastoral conversations with you, that most, if not all of us, could identify someone we know or knew who is currently involved in a high demand or high control group or a cult. Some people in our pews may be involved currently, whether they know that or not, or might have been involved in the past. And even if you don't know anyone and are sure you're not in a cult, all we have to do is look at our political landscape and know that the growth of these groups impacts all of us. And let me take a moment now to be very clear. Not everyone who is involved with a group that displays cult-like characteristics experiences harm. Cult survivor Mark Vincente says, "No one joins a cult. They join a good thing." And for many people, that good thing continues. I have personal friends and acquaintances who are involved in groups and religions that some categorize as cults or high demand, and they are completely happy and fulfilled by that group, and I fully trust and believe that truth for them. And another truth alongside that is that groups that display cult-like characteristics cause great harm to some people. And it is heartbreaking, too, for those of us on the outside of groups like this to watch our loved ones be so harmed and feel so powerless. One of the features of destructive cults or high-demand groups is that they encourage adherents or followers to consider the group their new family. They encourage adherents or followers to distance themselves from biological family or friends outside the group, and some adherents or followers cut off those ties. And this leads us on the outside to feel even more powerless over the safety and security of our loved one. The field of study of people who have left cults can help us understand how to be supportive of people who are involved in those relationships with those loved ones. People who consider themselves cult survivors again and again say that one of the critical things that helped them get out was knowing that they had a person or family or a community to go to if they left that group. And they had some assurance that that person or family or community would not judge them or try to change them, but would just love them. Part of the mind control of groups with cult-like characteristics is that they lead people to believe that they cannot imagine leaving the group and being happy and fulfilled. So if we can give our loved ones some assurance that our love for them is unconditional and that we can offer a non-judgmental space for them, we can counteract that mind control and give that person a place to land when and if they choose and are able to leave. Unitarian Universalism's values give us ample foundation to create an unconditionally loving and non-judgmental environment. And I see some struggles in us offering a space that might feel truly non-judgmental for someone involved in or seeking escape from what they deem a cult. Because we have to not be tempted to debate or disprove their belief. For someone who has been subject to mind control or abuse, debating the belief is what that group wants us to do, because it confirms that what the group has been telling our loved one, that no one outside the group can understand them. But if we can stretch our concepts of being loved beyond belief, stretch our concept of being welcome here, all of you, to the radical edges of those phrases, I think we can create non-judgmental and loving, unconditionally loving environments. And because of the nature of discourse in some contemporary political, religious, spiritual, and secular cult-like groups, not all of us can safely offer that non-judgment and unconditional love. When the beliefs of another person are a personal attack on our identity, we don't have to stretch to show them unconditional love, but someone else could. But for those of us who can, the tools to create a non-judgmental, unconditionally loving space are here. If you were listening, all the words in our service today were chosen because they create that space. Many Sundays you hear the words that make you feel welcome, and you are greeted in ways you make you feel like you truly belong. By being part of this Unitarian Universalist congregation, you are hopefully learning implicitly and explicitly how to create a loving, non-judgmental, unconditionally loving space. And you are here, at least in part, because you want to learn how to be more loving, to be more loved, and to spread more love in the world. I'll end with a story. My first year in this job, I counseled someone who was fresh out of a group that they defined as a cult. They attended worship a number of times and asked for some pastoral counseling pretty early on. And I struggled in that counseling session to give definitive answers to their theological questions. I asked a lot, back to them a lot, what do you think? A lot, which seemed to make them more confused and more insecure. I never saw them again after that pastoral counseling session, and I thought we had failed them. I had failed them. But knowing what I know now, I don't think we did. I think that person was attracted to our congregation and Unitarian Universalism because we were offering them that unconditional love that they were so desperately seeking. And the openness of our theology was just too different from what they had recently known. Even though we could not offer them a theology that supported them in their transition, we held them for a short period of time. If nothing else, we gave them space to breathe and hear that they are whole and holy just as they are. And I hope that we provided them with a small memory of a place that did not control them, but encouraged them to search truths for themselves. And that, I like to think, is unconditional love. Friends, may we continue to be a place where the people who need to feel the healing power of unconditional love can find that here. May we continue to be a community where people not only know, but also feel that they are whole and holy, just as they are. If all we offer is love, that, for many, will be more than enough. May we make it so. Amen. Blessed be.
Thank you. It's time now in our service for an offering, to do the offering. And this Sunday is Share the Plate Sunday, which we have each month to support a valuable community organization whose mission we actively endorse. Remember that generosity is a spiritual practice, and Share the Plate is one of the ways that we demonstrate that we put actions behind our words. The ministry today that we honor with Share the Plate is Casa Elitas. They will receive half the amount of each of the checks that you write out today if you have Share the Plate on the memo line, as well as half of all of the cash donations today. If you don't have Share the Plate written on the memo line, the half won't go to them. If you're joining us virtually, you can send a check to the church office with Share the Plate on the memo. You can also give online to uuctucson.org/donate. If you give online, remember you have to specify Share the Plate. So in just a minute, we're going to hear from Karen Pope about the important work that Casa Elitas does. She's a retired educator. When she's not volunteering her time to Casa Elitas, she dedicates herself to being an environmental, peace, and justice activist. Please let us give her a warm UUCT welcome.
Good morning. First, may I ask, is there anyone else who volunteers or is associated with Casa Elitas? Excellent. Please, I'm going to go to the social afterwards. Let's connect. There are many hundreds of volunteers, and I don't know all of them. But Casa Elitas has evolved over the years to be, in its current iteration, it is a two-place shelter with one location in Nogales as well. In the heyday of COVID, we used to have a hotel that had just COVID-positive people, but that's not the case anymore. When you enter the social hall, there's a half-sheet, two-sided sheet that I'd like you to take because it has both how to volunteer and how to donate. And you're donating very kindly today, and that's really appreciated. We have a little bit of a reprieve right now. As recently as January, we thought the federal funding was not going to be renewed. And some of us were on a committee called Street Releases, and that's how Casalitas started, by people just recognizing that there were migrants wandering around the bus station downtown. And some of us met for a month trying to get our heads around how can we do that with 800 people or up to 1,000 people a day. So luckily, the federal funding did come through, but this sheet was created by a group called Allies for Alitas, and it's wholly separate from Catholic Community Services. And we just thought we'd be allies, and we got about 1,000 signatures and took them to the city, county, state, and federal officials in the area, just to explain what the benefit is to Tucson of this program. You are not strangers to helping migrants. When I first moved here, Andy and Mary Summers, my friends, were collecting socks because Mary's ministry was to go to the border as a nurse and treat people's feet, just their feet. So I know your history of helping people like this. I'm a volunteer. And I have chosen, sort of by process of elimination, the kitchen. I like to feed people. When people sit around a table, they feel safe, they feel comfortable, they can have a conversation, their shoulders can relax. Some people feel that's the first safety they've had in many months of travel. So it's very rewarding for me personally. I had worked in 4 different locations, and Casalitas has a location in the Juvenile Justice Center on Ajo Way, the back of it. That's one location, the Welcome Center, and then there's one on Drexel Road. Most people stay a day. They are not given money. There's a lot of misconceptions in the press about what migrants get or don't get. Their sponsors, before they're released from Border Patrol, they can't even be released without sponsorship being acknowledged. So their sponsors pay for them. We in Casalitas give them maybe shoelaces, maybe underwear, children's clothes, a couple of meals, a bed if they need it. But most people, and we're talking 8 to 1,800 people a day, are processed through the shelter now. And they come from all over the world. I'll just tell you a couple of stories and then I'll stop because I know you have other things to do today. Early on, when I was in a little shelter on Copper Street downtown, you couldn't even find the shelter without knowing where it was because there were people there who were afraid for their safety, and so there were a lot of women and children there and families, and it was unusual to see the same person 2 weeks in a row, and so I greeted this lady the second week I was there, and I said, "Why are you still here?" And she said, "Because my son and I were separated during travel, and I can't find him, and they're helping me to find him." So you probably remember the child separation era, and in some ways it's still going on. And then another story was right after Russia invaded Ukraine, I happened to meet a whole Russian family. These aren't just not Latin American people who come, but people from all over the world. This Russian man brought his whole family across the world through Mexico so that he wouldn't have to fight in that war. So it was pretty, we meet a lot of people. And if you can just smile and be compassionate and flexible, you have a place at Casalitas if you're interested in this work. And I'd be glad to talk to you a little more after the service. Thanks very much.
Oh, thank you, Karen. It's such important work for the asylum seekers. Thank you. So I'll set her up with a little table over in Goddard after our service. You'll be able to talk more with her there and get the handout that she's got. So however you participated in today's service, person or remotely, oh, here come the children. Oh my gosh. Wait, it says, here come the children after I say this, but that's good. It's all good. Oh, however you want to give online, that's fine. UUC Tucson, I've already said that. You can text 833-361-5796. So please give freely, give generously of your own free will, as we talked about during the sermon. Our community is one of faith, hope, memory, and love, because we are the keepers of the flame. Danielle. Brian, I've got one quick announcement, and I'll toss the ball to you. There'll be a board meeting working on their transparency right through those glass doors at 12:30, since the air conditioning is very comfortable there and not so comfortable where they originally planned to meet today. We've already got a plug-in for the social hour at Goddard with coffee and tea and iced tea and lemonade, so that's all good. And there's a welcome center, both for those of you who are new here. As you go into Goddard on the left, you'll see a big banner. If you'd like us to stay in touch with you, you can fill out a form there. If you're online, go to our website, uuctucson.org, and you'll see a newcomer button to click, and you can sign up there. So, now that our children are here, they get to hear the entire song, Brian.
And in a moment, the words will be up, but I'm grateful for all the stuff that's happening at the service. We are grateful. We are grateful for the endless blessings we receive beyond what we could have conceived, for this journey that led us here, and this path to follow of a love so dear. Thank you.
Change Sings, a children's anthem. Words by Amanda Gorman, pictures by Lauren Long. I can hear change humming in its loudest, proudest song. I don't fear change coming, and so I sing along. I scream with the skies of red and blue streamers. I dream with the cries of tried and true dreamers. I'm a chant that rises and rings. There is a hope where my change sings. Though some don't understand it, those windmills of mysteries, I sing with all the planet and its hills of histories. I hum with 100 hearts, each of us lifting a hand. I use my strengths and my smarts, taking me to make a stand. I'm bright as the light each day brings. There is love where my change sings. I show others tolerance, though it might take some courage. I don't make a taller fence, but fight to build a better bridge. I talk not only of distances, from where and how we came. I also walk our differences to show we are the same. I'm a movement that roars and springs. There's a wave where my change sings. Change sings where? There inside me, because I'm the change I want to see. As it grows like seeds. I am just what the world needs. I'm the voice where freedom rings. You're the love your bright heart brings. We are the waves starting to spring, for we are the change we sing. We're what the world is becoming, and we know it won't be long. We all hear change strumming. Won't you sing along?
That's a nice setup to sing a song. This last song is a song that is a little less well known. We've sung it, I think, twice before, but it's been a long time, or a month or three. The choir is going to start, and they're going to be our backdrop. They're going to sing the words that are on the slide, but in a different order, and then I'm going to turn to you after I get them going, and I'll guide you through the song. It's simple. We'll sing it about 4 times because it's fairly short. But let the choir start first and then join us on the words, hold my hope, hold my trembling, hold my heart, teach me to be love. Stand as you choose. Hold my hope, hold my trembling, hold my heart, teach me to be love. Hold my hope, hold my trembling, hold my heart, teach me to be love. Hold my hope, hold my trembling, hold my heart, teach me to be love.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, choir. Good, good, good. It's time now to extinguish our chalice, and this time you all get to read with me. Look at that. We get a big helper there, too. All right, Otis. This is written by Michael Schuler, called Cherish Your Doubts. That's the man, and here come the words. Oh, I'm on my own. You can't say with me, but here's what it says. Cherish your doubts, for doubt is the servant of truth. Question your convictions, for beliefs too tightly held strangle the mind and its natural wisdom. Suspect all certitudes, for the world whirls on and nothing abides. Yet, in our inner rooms full of doubt, inquiry and suspicion, let a corner, just a corner, be reserved for trust. For without trust, there is no space for communities to gather or for friendships to be forged. Indeed, this is the small corner of trust where we connect and then reconnect with each other. Thank you for being here today. Danielle.